Okay, we have some players plummeting down dynasty rankings. I mean, Jalen Reagor just went to Minnesota. Rest in peace, Justin Jefferson. But maybe you could buy Jefferson on the low. We'll be talking about some buy low candidates in this video. Before we get into it, though, you know what I'm going to ask. Go down there, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. Only if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football, and leave a comment letting me know any players that you think we should be buying low that maybe aren't included here. But let's go ahead. Let's dive into this. Let's look at Dak Prescott as the first player falling down in value. And with Dak Prescott, if we go through and if we track his value according to Keep Trade Cut over the past offseason, this is a quarterback that went from being a first-round starter pick. And if y'all remember, we made a video talking about how Dak Prescott was overvalued in that range because he's not going to have the rushing upside. And trust me, guys, I wish fantasy football was not this way. I wish it was not that rushing upside dictated so much about quarterback value in fantasy. This is why I think going forward, I'm probably going to be playing in leagues that have 6-point passing touchdowns. That way you give that bonus, that added value to those quarterbacks like a Dak Prescott that maybe he's not going to be able to pick up an additional 30 yards rushing every single week, but can have the passing volume that those rushing quarterbacks don't, to even out the playing field. But in a 4-point passing touchdown league, I agree that Dak had to go down in value. Y'all know our guy Trey Lance, we've been advocating for 2 years now, was going behind him, and I'm happy to see Lance going in front of him now. But what I will say is maybe the hate on Dak's gone a little bit too far, because you are looking at him currently being drafted behind Jalen Hurts. I mean, according to Keep Trade Cut, in early 2023 first has more value as well. With Dak Prescott, you do have a mid quarterback one ceiling, and on top of this, you have the job security going forward in a great situation in Dallas where we know Kellen Moore is going to push the pace of play, as well as have that very serious passing rate over expectation that makes you consider Dak Prescott as a low-end quarterback one every single season. So I think maybe if Dak all of a sudden is going the 2-3 turn here, this is a fair price point for Dak Prescott now in Dynasty, and I'd be fine if you wanted to go out there and buy him at this price. But now going over to our next quarterback, I have no idea what people according to Keep Trade Cut are doing. Deshaun Watson. Now with Deshaun Watson, he's a first-round starter pick. I know people are going to hate to hear that. Trust me, I get it. But if we go back and look at his career since he entered the NFL in 2017, Deshaun Watson, his worst season ever, he was a mid-quarterback one on a points-per-game basis. He has more seasons finishing inside the top 3 quarterbacks on a points-per-game basis than outside the top 3. Literally, the only other quarterback in fantasy that we've seen through their entire NFL career demonstrate this floor and ceiling combination is Patrick Mahomes. Now, understand the Cleveland Browns, not a great situation for Deshaun Watson, but at the same time, were the Houston Texans a great roster whenever Deshaun Watson was going out there and finishing as a top 5 quarterback consistently? They weren't. And the Cleveland Browns, while they don't have great pass catchers, we'll talk about one of them at the end of this video that I do think we can go out there and target. They have one of, if not the best offensive lines in football. Right now, PFF has them as the second best O-line in football. Deshaun Watson's a late round 1 starter pick. I understand you're going to be without him for the first 11 weeks, but if we're looking at Keep Trade Cut here, behind A.J. Dillon, behind Derrick Henry, behind Kelsey, behind Justin Fields, behind DJ Moore, I would trade anything, any one of these pieces for Deshaun Watson, because I can tell you he is going to be a consensus round 1 starter pick this upcoming offseason. And now let's go over to our next player. And I've noticed him falling in redraft leagues, but I figured that in Dynasty, he'd be maintaining his value. Garrett Wilson. Now with Garrett Wilson, I mean, we did have to move him down to our wide receiver 3 in this year's rookie class after the NFL draft behind Treylon Burks, because I admit, horrible situation in New York right now. I mean, the quarterback spot is going to be iffy for quite some time if they're going to commit to Zach Wilson over the next few years. And he has to compete for targets with Elijah Moore. Obviously, Elijah Moore is still on his rookie contract. This is not a great situation. And whether you're looking at underdog, whether you're looking at Keep Trade Cut, Garrett Wilson's been a player that's lost a considerable amount of value. Now, of course, if you want to draft with us, anytime. We are doing real money fantasy football drafts every single night on the live stream on Underdog Fantasy. I think you should be drafting Garrett Wilson there when he's going as like the wide receiver 50. If you want to draft on Underdog, go to the link in the description. Go to the link in the live chat. Sign up with promo code FLOCK. With a $10 deposit, you get our Dynasty rankings. You get our redraft rankings. You get our 2022 fantasy football draft guide. And they match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100 with promo code FLOCK. So make sure you're taking advantage of that. But looking at Garrett Wilson, as I said, I mean, on Underdog, I kind of understood why he was falling in value. I'm still drafting him there. But guys, this is Dynasty. We are playing for the long term. After the NFL draft, Garrett Wilson, according to Keep Trade Cut, was hovering around the wide receiver 17, wide receiver 16 range. And now he's fallen to be the wide receiver 29, wide receiver 30. He's fallen to be a mid wide receiver 3 in fantasy. Let's take a step back. Let's remember this Garrett Wilson profile where he broke out at an early age. He declares early for the NFL draft. He dominates as a sophomore at Ohio State and is selected inside the top 10 picks. Those are all massive bonuses for his profile, considering the fact that he dealt with the toughest target competition possibly in college football history. I know that's a bold statement, but in that Ohio State wide receiver room in 2020, you had Jackson Smith-Njigba, who will be the wide receiver 1 in next year's class, and possibly, just possibly, a Jamar Chase lookalike as a prospect. Chris Olave, who went at pick 11 in this year's NFL draft. Jameson Williams goes at pick 12, and Garrett Wilson dominated, caused Jameson Williams to have to transfer over there to Alabama. It's a great profile. I think that he is an elite level wide receiver. It's a very bad situation, but if you're getting him as the 73rd player in Dynasty, right now he's 2 spots next to Dameon Pierce. If you can trade Dameon Pierce for Garrett Wilson, you do that ASAP. And now let's go over to our next guy. This is going to be a running back here. Cam Akers has fallen a considerable amount. If we go through and if we look at Cam Akers and his value going into the 2021 season for Dynasty Fantasy Football, before he tore his Achilles, the running back 6. Then he steamed himself up after rehabbing and surprising everyone and coming back in February. And you see a peak of running back 7. Running back 7 during the NFL playoffs. Now he's fallen back down to be the running back 20. His overall value chart is just a straight linear line down since his return. And of course, you have to be concerned with the overall recovery process with the torn Achilles. We have to be concerned about the reports we're getting out of Los Angeles right now. But if we go back to what we just did with Garrett Wilson, we looked at the prospect profile coming out of Florida State. First off, he was a 5-star recruit going to Florida State. He was an elite level prospect coming out where he had the size to be a 3-down player. He demonstrated the receiving down capability in college. On top of this, an elite level athlete, gets drafted in the 2nd round, and he was the youngest running back in that 2020 draft class. Checks every single box that you were looking for. This is like the easiest buy low candidate ever, in my opinion. Now, I understand there are red flags, and that's why you are getting him as a discount. That's why right now you're getting him in like the 7th, 8th round of startups. Whereas if we go back to what he was a year ago before the torn Achilles, say your round 1 startup pick, early round 2 if you were playing in Superflex drafts. So there are real concerns with Akers, but at the same time, if we just go 12 months back, I think we see the upside case and why people are willing to buy in. Now let's go over to our next player who's a rookie, very similar to Garrett Wilson. Maybe I understand why his value's fallen so much on Underdog, that's redraft, where you're just drafting for 2022. But in Dynasty, what is going on with Treylon Burks here? With Treylon Burks, this is a wide receiver that, after the NFL draft, was the wide receiver 14. The wide receiver 14. Now, I understand that's a little rich. Maybe he shouldn't have been going there. I don't think he was ever that high in our Dynasty rankings. If he was, please correct me down there in the comment section. But he has consistently fallen, very similar to Akers, a straight line down according to the Keep Trade Cut overall value. And you have him now as the wide receiver 34. You have Treylon Burks as a low-end wide receiver 3, high-end wide receiver 4 in Dynasty Fantasy Football. Treylon Burks is a wide receiver coming out of Arkansas. Checks a lot of the boxes we're looking for. He has prototypical size. He was a good athlete at the NFL Combine, but more importantly, breaks out at an early age in the SEC, dominates with over 40% of his team's receiving yards on a per-game basis his final season there, and declares early for the NFL draft. He checks every single box you look for. You're getting him as the low-end wide receiver 3 in Dynasty. At this price, he's probably the easiest buy in Dynasty Fantasy Football. I mean, going forward, we don't know if Robert Woods is going to be a Titan next year. So his target competition is Nick Westbrook-Akeen. Derrick Henry is going to be 29 years old this offseason. Do we really think they can just continue to run the ball over and over and over again with a 29-year-old Derrick Henry? I don't think so. Buy Treylon Burks now, for the love of God. Going over to our next player, someone that we got so much hate on. I don't know if we've ever had a video get as much hate as when we came out, when we looked at Zach Wilson, looked at his rookie season and how it stacked up to quarterbacks historically. And I said, okay, if we look at his adjusted yards per pass attempt, which is an all-encompassing metric, and we compare that to quarterbacks historically, the only quarterback to ever post a rookie season as bad as Zach Wilson and succeed was Josh Allen. And we should not be chasing outliers, because that's one outlier everybody wants to point to with a long list of guys that failed. And on top of this, we've looked at the New York Jets under this ownership regime. This is something I've changed my mind about over the past few years. Back in 2017, back in 2016, while I was playing Dynasty, if someone brought this up, I would look at them, I would laugh at them and say, oh, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But I think there comes a point where if we see that an organization is dysfunctional from the top down with ownership over a 20, 30-year period, we should have some red alarms. We should have some red flags. So Zach Wilson was a quarterback that we were selling all along. We were selling low after he failed his rookie season. He was up to the quarterback 15 around the time of the NFL draft, because that's when everybody was all in, because the Jets had a good NFL draft, and that's when we were getting our hate. But now you have Zach Wilson falling down to being a player that's outside the top 100 players on Keep Trade Cut. This is the bottoming out value for Zach Wilson, given the level of team investment the Jets have into him. Even if I think Zach Wilson's most likely a bad NFL quarterback and it's most likely never going to change, I'm still buying at this price tag. At this price tag, this is telling me, I can trade James Cook. I can trade James Conner, get Zach Wilson into a 12-team Superflex league. I can trade Allen Robinson. I can trade Ramondre Stevenson. I'm trading Ramondre Stevenson for Zach Wilson where we can. And let's move it down to our next player. This is going to be a rookie here. Someone that I've drafted nonstop on Underdog. Like, speaking on Underdog, just 2022 fantasy football value. Like, they have him as like the wide receiver 6, wide receiver 7 going behind Romeo Doubs. Now, I'm drafting Christian Watson aggressively there. And in Dynasty, we have seen Christian Watson's value fall quite a bit, and I don't necessarily understand this either, because with Christian Watson, yeah, he missed out on training camp, at least a large portion of it, with a knee injury. But we are not drafting Christian Watson for the beginning of 2022. You're drafting Christian Watson. You're drafting Treylon Burks. You're drafting Garrett Wilson. You are drafting these rookie wide receivers for their career in Dynasty. Christian Watson, yes, he has a massive red flag on his profile. That's the age. It's the fact he declared so late out of college. Something you do not want to see. But we said he was the one player in this year's draft class that we were going to give the COVID excuse, because he did not get to play football in the fall his junior year. He had to get that push back to the spring because he was playing at such a small school. He dominated his final season there, elite level athlete. Was a very high draft pick, I believe pick 34 by the Green Bay Packers. Right now, you're looking at Christian Watson as the wide receiver 49, according to Keep Trade Cut. Buy. I don't think Allen Lazard's a long-term answer. I think Christian Watson's better than Romeo Doubs. I'm taking Watson here. And now our next player, and I don't know if it's just that everybody is treating their Dynasty League right now as if it's a redraft league. Obviously, we are in redraft season. Like, trust me, guys, I'm getting it. I'm drafting those Underdog teams every single night on the live stream. We're making redraft videos every single day. I feel like if anybody was going to have their mind just clouded with redraft judgment, it would be me. But I feel like The Dynasty community is even worse. Like, why are all these rookie wide receivers losing so much value? David Bell right now, the wide receiver 65. David Bell broke out at 18 years old at Purdue. David Bell declares early, dominant his final season, goes on day 2 of the NFL draft. The one thing holding David Bell back, you see, was slow. But from your slot wide receivers, I don't care if they're slow. I mean, trust me, y'all remember when we were making the videos way back when people were saying that David Bell was a better option than Chris Olave in rookie drafts before the NFL Combine, and we were like, oh no, David Bell, horribly overvalued. But that was back when he was the wide receiver 38. Now he's the wide receiver 62, and I would make the argument, David Bell, fantastic landing spot. Going back to what we were discussing earlier with Deshaun Watson, facts are facts. Historically speaking, Deshaun Watson's been a top 5 quarterback in the NFL from an efficiency standpoint. He's elevated Will Fuller to be a top 10 option in fantasy before when there was no DeAndre Hopkins there. I think David Bell is going to be playing in a very efficient passing offense down the stretch this upcoming season. I think that in 2023, you don't have Amari Cooper guaranteed to be on this roster, whereas David Bell is guaranteed, and the Cleveland Browns don't have any future first-round picks to speak of to go out there and invest in the wide receiver position. So I think that David Bell's in a very good situation going forward, and I would love to go out there and trade a second-round pick for David Bell right now. I mean, let me look at the players going next to David Bell at this point. Right now in front of David Bell, you have Joshua Palmer, Nico Collins, Tyler Lockett, James Robinson. What are we doing here? People prefer Nico Collins over David. Okay, I'm gonna end this video here. Guys, I think everybody has just redraft leagues on their mind. Everybody has the start of 2022 on their mind. I think in Dynasty, it's a very good idea to go trade for these long-term assets right now. I mean, I don't love the value system Keep Trade Cut uses for their future first-round picks, but I'd imagine that these 2023 firsts are coming at a discount as well. So it may suck, but I think this is probably the time to be trading guys like Aaron Jones, Christian McCaffrey, Leonard Fournette, Derrick Henry, these win now assets, because people are severely undervaluing the future in Dynasty currently. But that's all I got for you. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope you got something from it. Go down there, drop that like if you want more Dynasty videos. And if you want to get in a draft with us any night, you know we're drafted on Underdog every single night. So sign up with promo code FLOCK with a $10 deposit. You get our Dynasty rankings, our 2022 draft guide. You get a 100% deposit match, so it's essentially free to check out. But thank you again. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a great day.